than perhaps teams and traditions. Matt Brown, publisher, Extra Points, joins us. Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Matt, thank you very much. As you can imagine, like our chat room every single day on this channel, the YouTube channel, and our stories and text and all, it does seem like right now there's almost I don't know how to say it, some sort of a who can beat their chest on who's better right now. The Pac-12, the Big 12, and of course the ACC is also kind of in this conversation in a way. It's kind of almost, I don't even like that part. I don't know who's stronger. Really, do you know either?
No, well, first of all, gentlemen, thanks for having me on here. And I have to admit, I'm in a similar position, and I'm based in Chicago, and I don't have any emotional or educational or deep professional tie to any institution in either of these leagues. And it is weird to kind of look at from that kind of detached sense here. I don't really believe that there's a huge difference either way. And I don't think there's a huge difference right now financially. And I understand that has that's a little bit counter to the prevailing conventional wisdom at this point, but I've been on this beat for a while. I really don't have reason to believe right now there's a massive financial difference. One league's much better than the other in college basketball, but whether that's recruiting, whether that's television brand, Q score, these other things that fans are beating their chests over, I don't think there really is a huge difference right now. And you don't really have to brand yourself as a Big 12 partisan and make that part of your online identity at the moment. I don't think anyone's going to be able to post their way into inviting Arizona State.
So what do you think the best end game is for either side here?
Well, to be as unsatisfying as a sports radio answer as this is, I don't think there's anything terribly wrong with letting this ride here for a little while. If you're a fan of a Big 12 institution, there's a lot you can be excited about. You can say, hey, right now there's very good reason to think we have the best men's basketball league in the country. And we have a reason to think that it could potentially get even better, depending on what happens with places like Houston and BYU and Cincinnati as they get access to even more television money and even more resources. We have a league now where we have a presence in a couple of markets that are growing and a couple of programs that are growing here. And we don't really know what the college football playoff is going to look like in 4 years. And so there's really no sense in getting super bent out of shape about it. If things move, shift in a way and the four corner schools ends up joining, great. I think that will make a better league. If that doesn't happen, I don't think that diminishes the core value or the core identity of what this conference is right now.
Matt, I think the humorous part to me as well is we had Mac Rhodes, Baylor AD on yesterday, and he said in so many words, and not trying to be ominous or anything, but we're not done. And I don't think he was referring to just the Pac-12 and whatever decision is made one way or the other with them in the Big 12. I think this is just another step in what is going to be more steps along the way. Do you agree?
I think I have heard this from other people in the Big 12, and I think it is fair to say all three conferences right now that aren't in one of the Big Two, they're open for business. And open for business can mean a lot of things. Open for business can mean being willing to entertain membership changes or willing to be proactive or aggressive in trying to change membership. It can also be aggressive in trying to develop other revenue sources, whether that's conference partnerships, whether that's creating new events. I mean, if you're in the Big 12, you have to realize now your new commissioner has a lot of professional experience in sponsorships and MMR and in the live event space. And so if there's ways to start doing games in third-party areas or trying to set up some kind of presence in other markets and brand that and sell that gets people more money without necessarily having to invite a Colorado. So when you hear an AD or when you hear an administrator say everything's on the table right now, I think as a fan, you got to think a little bit more expansively and creatively than that. That doesn't just mean, hey, we might invite Clemson. It might mean, hey, we might do a deal with Flow Sports. Hey, it might mean that we're gonna play a football game in Las Vegas at the beginning of every year. Like there's a lot of stones to be unturned.
Yeah, isn't it wild? Is it in a day and age where you have so much that is like almost pillaging everything, and that's a bad word, where you NIL's wide open, transfer portal's wide open, and now you have all of this. Have you ever seen a more hectic, wild west in college sports?
In terms of what things look like right now, really not since maybe immediately after World War II, which of course I wasn't around for, or some changes in the Paleolithic era of college athletics. A lot of the kind of basic assumptions that kind of underpin how this college athletics industry have worked for the last 4 decades are changing. And one of the things that this may sound kind of silly, but as I have been working in this space, I'm convinced is a real factor, is there's also a real lack of interpersonal trust between a lot of the leaders that are coming in here. Part of that is because you have some commissioners that are new. You have athletic directors who are relatively new. You have university presidents that are new, and that role is changing to where you're typically not a university president for 22 years anymore. They know those people change jobs almost as much as ADs or coaches now. So when you find yourself sitting across the negotiating table with somebody that you don't have a long professional history with, a little bit easier to stab them, and it's a little bit harder to really kind of navigate some of these very complicated questions with an element of trust. I do not imagine what happened with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 a couple of weeks ago would have happened if Jim Delaney was still here, or if some of the other leaders were still around here. You got a bunch of new faces, and that compounded with everything makes for a less stable environment.
It's interesting you bring up Jim Delaney, because he for a lot of people was kind of a conundrum in that he was kind of simultaneously progressive at times, but also stuck in the mud. You know, he didn't want to play off. He didn't want things, but he also did things that, especially individually for Ohio State and all that, and that worked out for them, or the Big Ten worked out really well. But he's gone now, and things are different. What do you think his legacy is really here now that Kevin Warren has taken over and it's different?
Boy, that's a great question. I think you're right. Like, you could make a very convincing argument that Delaney historically is a little bit of a villain, right? And that many of the trends that I think many fans really don't like, rampant kind of cynical conference expansion to the point of bringing in programs that are outside your cultural identity just to grab some more TV revenue. Like, that was not invented by the Big Ten, but certainly perfected and really driven by that. A level of obstinance to a point of ridiculousness and then about face. Like, that's a Big Ten thing. Delaney, memorably told everybody that if the Alston case went a different way and athletes began to get paid, that the Big Ten would drop to Division III, which everybody knows was ridiculous. But what I will say is that he was a very effective advocate for what he perceived, or what the Big Ten presidents perceived, was in their immediate best interest. That was not the national best interest. That wasn't the best interest of athletes or consumers, but it was the Big Ten's best interest. And I think that also would drive a fan crazy if you're in the Midwest, the West Coast right now, about the SEC, which I think is run in a similar way. It can be unfortunate that there aren't very many forces that are charged with looking after everybody rather than just individual regional fiefdoms.
You know, Matt, as far as if you were someone that was controlling the Pac-12, if you were someone in the position of Brett Yormark and the Big 12, what would you do? What would you do you think is not just speculation or rumor? What do you truly think they can do?
Well, I realize that I'm coming at this from a very different perspective. Because the dominant conventional wisdom, and this is true, I think, even if you talk to athletic directors, is the fact that the Big Ten and the SEC are going to make so much more money in Tier 1 television distributions over the coming decade is a existential threat to our conference. We cannot possibly hope to compete if we are making $55 million and the Big Ten is making $105 million. And respectfully, I would say I don't actually think that that's true. Because there is a very clear point here where money literally doesn't buy anymore. The Big Ten has made more money from television over the last decade anyway, and that hasn't stopped the Big 12 from winning national championships in men's basketball. It hasn't stopped the Big 12 from being extraordinarily competitive on the football field and doing well in other sports. Big Ten hasn't won a men's basketball championship since, 2002? Anybody outside of Ohio State has mostly not won anything of merit at the national stage. They're an embarrassment in college baseball outside of 1 year for Michigan. It's a lacrosse and hockey conference and a debate team conference. And I say that as somebody who has a degree from a Big Ten school and is based in Chicago. So I think the most important thing, and the advice I would give to any administrator in the Pac-12 and the Big 12 would be, we're going to do everything we can to earn more money, right? Whether that's non-conference scheduling agreements, whether that is being creative with TV times, whether that's really being aggressive in licensing and sponsorship opportunities. We'll do everything we can that doesn't hurt an athlete. But if we go into a world where we know that Purdue is going to have $40 million more than us, I don't think there's a reason right now to think you still can't be competitive. If you can win on culture, if you can win on talent evaluation, And if you have engaged boosters, it's not like the Big Ten's going to be able to take that TV money and immediately donate it to Michigan's collective and use it for payroll purposes. It's just not the way the money works right now.
Matt, what do you think of the big wild card in all things realignment talk, which is Notre Dame?
The difficult thing about trying to project what Notre Dame's going to do right now is that they are, honest to God, motivated by something a little bit different from everybody else. Mm-hmm. Notre Dame is not, and this isn't like me trying to be a Golden Dome homer or pump anybody up. This school is really not motivated to maximize their financial take home. If their goal was to make as much money as possible, they'd join the Big Ten. They would join the Big Ten today. They would join the Big Ten yesterday. They would have joined the Big Ten 5 months from now before UCLA and USC was a message board fever dream. Like, that was always going to bring them more money. They certainly would have done that before the Big Ten got very deep in their television negotiations. The question for Notre Dame isn't about maximizing money. It's about maximizing championship access. And that's the question that I don't think anybody right now can give a very clear, concise answer. Does Notre Dame still have a path to the college football playoff as an independent in the next version of what the college football playoff looks like? Did USC and UCLA's move to the Big Ten change that paradigm? And when I talk to administrators, when I talk to people on the television side, what I hear is, I don't think fans should make any kind of assumption about what the college football playoff looks like in 2026, including that there's going to be a playoff, right? It seemed like there was a very clear pathway for what there was going to look like 6 months ago. Hey, we're going to have this 12-team playoff. It's going to be split across 2 different television distributions. The SEC is going to do this. It didn't work. And now the assumptions and what people are willing to kind of concede changes a lot. So if Notre Dame feels like they can't do it, they're going to jump in the Big Ten. That changes everything. But that's not a decision that's going to be made next week. As frustrating as that might be for those of us in the content business.
One thing I've mentioned, and you kind of mentioned the conferences that are big boy conferences, money-wise, whatever, revenue-wise, even alumni-wise, et cetera, big stadiums, is I still can't imagine a national championship at the highest level of college football being decided where Rutgers and Maryland, Vanderbilt or Northwestern, with all due respect to any of them, having a chance to win a national title, and someone like Oregon or Washington or the teams that are right now among the best in the Big 12, Baylor and Oklahoma State, not being able to because of a conference. Do you?
Yeah, no, I think you're exactly right. It isn't about that. What helps you for college football compete for a championship isn't money. Money can help pay for many of the things that are required, but like that alone really doesn't change things. It's the name of the game is talent acquisition, talent development, and talent retention. And you could double Rutgers' budget, and it's still going to be in New Jersey, and it's still going to have all of the generational problems that the Rutgers Athletics brand has in New Jersey. And you're going into an era now where kids are essentially hitting free agency after every single year, and it takes more than money just to keep them around. So I don't look at television distributions or even necessarily conference affiliation as being the game changer there. How well you recruit is in some part determined by your head coach. It's in some part determined by your support staff, and it's in some part determined by your NIL bag network. But it's also by a lot of other things, and money can't buy all of them.
Hey, man, I know you have family in town. Go spend it with them, and thanks for giving us some time today, Matt. Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Sir.
Good luck with everything.
Matt Brown, publisher at Extra Points. Appreciate his time. This is from Joel on the text line.